Despite greater regulations and stronger enforcement action, Refinitiv has found that many organisations struggle to gain visibility and take appropriate action over third-party risks. Now they want to empower investors and corporations to shift towards sustainable finance initiatives and practices. We went to find out more.
A focus on the critical area of third-party relationships has revealed the hidden risks in supplier, distributor and partner relationships. Over the last few months, COVID-19 has applied huge stress to global supply chains and allowed criminals to exploit the pandemic to defraud companies and government agencies. Human trafficking, slave labour and corruption is thought to be on the rise, alongside a growth in green crimes, which has seen damage inflicted on the environment and wildlife.
We've seen through the pandemic that unfortunately criminals have been exploiting supply chains, particularly around things like medical equipment. And we know that several companies have been defrauded quite large sums of money. Green crime covers a number of sort of environmental related crimes. So, illegal logging, illegal disposal of waste, and particularly things like wildlife trafficking, which are on the increase. There's a number of things coming together to create a focus there. First of all, criminal activity in this area is increasing. Where I think wildlife trafficking today is estimated to account for something like $160 billion in illicit funds that are laundered through the world's financial systems.
In a recent global report on third-party risk, Refinitiv, who provide leading financial data to thousands of institutions across the world, found that 43% of companies are not subject to due diligence checks, while 60% of respondents said they are not fully monitoring third parties for ongoing risk, and 53% said they would report a third-party breach internally, but only 16% said they would report it externally.
There were so many companies who really aren't doing enough due diligence to understand the risk associated with doing business with the third parties they do business with. And that's, exposing them, as I said, to reputational risk and also regulatory enforcement. So a really important issue, I think, that needed to be resolved. I think the other things we found is that, some companies are clearly trading risk for greater revenues.
Analysts say there's more pressure now for firms to take an ethical stance on their supply chain, combined with screening for risk and due diligence checks.
Laws are starting to change that are meaning companies need to take what goes on in their supply chains far more seriously. Now I think it's become increasingly clear that if your supplier is violating environmental standards or not treating their employees very well, they're also quite likely to be paying bribes. So you really now need to do due diligence on a company's entire business integrity profile, how they treat their workers, how they meet environmental standards, and the overall integrity of the organization, not just a few narrow legal risks. And I think Refinitiv is really at the forefront of building that ESG due diligence approach.
Refinitiv also recognise that to fight such crimes, they need to work in partnership with all sectors.
When we're talking about the supplier risk, when we're talking about third-party risk, there are certain risks that we're talking about where we have to think about the impact that those crimes have in society. When we think about a wide definition of financial crime, including money laundering, including corruption, including human trafficking, those are crimes that governments and law agencies cannot fight on their own. They need institutions like Refinitiv to be able to fight these crimes.
Refinitiv say their third-party risk report highlights the need for change and the need for an effective mitigation programme from the initial screening and due diligence stages through to onboarding of their third parties.
Some of our clients are looking at rethinking their supply chains, trying to eliminate some of the risks that they have with those supply chains when they are very complex, trying to simplify that, ensuring that they understand better who they have on their supply chain, who are those suppliers, who are those third parties, and also sometimes bringing those supply chains closer to their headquarters, making sure that they have better control, better understanding of any of the organizations that they work with.
Refinitiv say COVID-19 has had a substantial impact on the risk landscape, particularly in terms of supply chain and third-party risk. If businesses do not have clear insight into all levels of their supply chains and the ability to conduct due diligence quickly and easily, they cannot hope to detect and mitigate risk.